Hey guys, it's Nathan, and in today's video, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on the upcoming cream switches from NovelKeys. For those who missed my update, NovelKeys is now a sponsor of my channel, and as such, I was luckily sent enough switches to build a 60% keyboard. Please do keep in mind this is the first batch of samples and the final product may have changes. Going straight to the rundown of the specs, these cream switches are a KL linear switch with 4mm of travel actuating at around 2mm. And the stock spring has an actuation point at around 55 grams of force and will bottom out with around 75 grams. They are expected to go live with a retail price of 65 cents per switch, with a possible discount being available during the pre-order. So what makes this switch different and why the recent buzz around them? Most switches today consist of a switch housing made with nylon or polycarbonate and a slider made of palm. While the cream switch isn't the first of its kind, NovelKeys is attempting to make it the first readily available switch to have both a palm slider and housing. Another nice addition is that these will be PCB mount and can be opened via your traditional switch opening tools as you would a cherry switch despite being a kale switch. Since palm is a super smooth plastic that is often described as self-lubricating, the choice of palm at least appears obvious in theory for the search of creating a smooth switch. Straight out of the box, I noticed that these switches were pretty darn smooth. While there still are linears I haven't tried, in my opinion the creams felt as smooth as, if not slightly more smooth than, a retooled black switch from a good batch. Interestingly enough, how quickly you press the switch varies the smoothness of the switch. While MG Sickler of NovelKeys himself coined the term feeling like a leathery feel, that isn't exactly the easiest to understand, so here's my attempt at trying to describe what that means. This is my tripod. Now, I know this isn't the same as a cream switch and it isn't made of leather, but pay attention to the sounds you hear. If I grip the leg of my tripod really tightly and rotate around it very slowly, you can distinctly hear the stuttering that I'm talking about. Doing the same thing, but at a slightly faster rate, you can see how there's a little bit less friction at a more consistent rate. Once again, same thing, but rotating around it as fast as I can. There's almost no friction that you can hear. Now I know that wasn't the best analogy and it was also severely over-exaggerated, but try to translate what I just explained with the sound and the stuttering to how the smoothness of the switch varies with the cream switch. Press the switch slow enough even from directly above and the leathery feel, which is equivalent to when I rotated the tripod at a moderate speed, can be felt. Press the switch off center and depending on how severe it is, you can expect major stuttering. The thing is, you have to press the switch extremely slowly to encounter this friction at all, and during actual usage, you will hardly notice this friction. Even then, however, you may occasionally get hit with that leathery feel when reaching for keys with your weaker fingers off center. Those who are light typists may experience this much more frequently, at least with the stock spring. Regardless of how you type, however, I think everyone should mod these switches. I personally don't like stock springs in general, and this one is no exception. Although I found the spring great in feel and weight, they are noisy as most stock springs are. I originally built my CA66 with these switches stock and broke them in for a week before lubing it and putting it in my TGR Alice. I personally lubed my batch with Tribosys 3204, and while the leathery feel doesn't entirely disappear, it now only remains in a much more subdued fashion when pressing the switch extremely off-center. Which also brings up another interesting point. When lubed, all of that leather friction disappears and the switches sound and feel great. However, it appears that after about a week of use, the friction starts to come back. Chris Swires, who we may know for his split table pictures that always take the #1 spot of the mechanical keyboards subreddit front page, had the same occur to him with Krytox VPF 1514 as well as 104. And my suspicion is that because palm is more slippery, lubes may not adhere as well to this switch. As for acoustics, these switches sound pretty good. While I do still think cherry housings are the king when it comes to sound, these switches definitely have both a noticeably thockier bottom out and return sound than Gateron housings, which I like. As user Lightning pointed out in his review, however, these do have a hollow signature. Despite putting these switches lubed in a dense case like the TGR Alice with a brass plate, I would say that my board sounds hollow, as if I could almost fit some shelf liner or sorbethane inside, when in reality there is virtually no space inside the board. Which brings us to our final questions. Do the cream switches live up to the hype, and are they worth it? I think that depends on if you are someone who mods their switches or not. While this leathery friction is not something you'd expect from a switch at this price point, the reality of it is that it's virtually undetectable during actual use as a stock switch. On the other hand, if you are an enthusiast who lubes your switches, at least based off my experience with 3204, these switches do not play well with lube, and that is a big bummer for me. It may be possible that something thicker like 205 Grade 0 might do the trick, but not everyone prefers something thick like that. Once again, I think these switches are great as a stock switch, but if you are someone who might be looking to lube your switches, who knows? I think some more science and experimentation needs to be done with these, and maybe some new Frankenstein switches might even come out of these housings. And yes, the bag did smell. If you guys like this video, like this review, make sure to leave a comment, like this video, subscribe if you haven't, join that notification squad by clicking the bell icon down below. For those of you guys who haven't been keeping up with the channel, I did start streaming on Twitch, and I do have my own Discord server as well. So please make sure to follow me there and be on the lookout. As always, until next time, see ya nerds.